Welcome, everybody, to the end of our top players of 2023. If you've missed the other videos, go back and watch them. But some quick rules here real quick. For my top players of 2023, I do it based on one player per team, barring one exception, which we'll talk about in a quick minute here. And it's only 3v3 based. I don't care about twos. I don't care about ones. I care mostly about 3v3. I care about RLCS. And that's all that matters to me for my top players of 2023. As you can see right there. Look at that. Fancy fonts. I'm not the greatest at Photoshop. All right. So just bear with me. On top of that, that's it. Let's get into it. Top players of 2023 will wrap up. And at number 2, probably a surprise to many. I think many people would have had him probably a little bit lower. But I got Rise. The roster mania king himself. The intangibles king, Rise. And sometimes this doesn't show up necessarily on the score sheet. This shows up mostly in the eye test. This shows up obviously in what his teams do before and after he's there. So let's just talk about it real quick. Obviously, Rise, 3 different rosters, 3 majors, 2 grand finals in majors, 1 grand finals in worlds. Obviously, fall doesn't necessarily count here, but it does count for one specific thing of trying to compare his former team to what that team turned into in winter. So he was with Moist in fall. They make a grand finals run. They weren't the greatest regional team. They barely squeaked in, but they did make it there. They took down Vatira and K-Corp. Made it to the grand finals, and then after he left that team, Moist went from grand finalist at the Winter Major to 8th regionally. So that's what really counts there. He joins Oxygen. They turn into a major team. They go, and then when he leaves, or I guess they didn't turn into a major team. They were a major team, but they were still a major team. When he leaves them after winter, Oxygen goes to 8th regionally yet again. And then even on top of that, Oxygen at Worlds, they finished 12th, the wild card. They won 1 match. They went 1-3. And that just shows the hole that Rise leaves. He's the hole maker, I guess. I don't know. Maybe we'll workshop that name. But the roster mania king, he joins BDS. Obviously, BDS did not make it to the fall or winter major. Rise joins them, and immediately they turn into the number 2 team in Europe. Like that. It was so incredibly quick. His numbers are not the greatest, I'm not going to lie. He's mostly an offensive player. He tries to cause some havoc. But his tallies don't really show that necessarily. He's not always on the score sheet. Number 7 tally in the winter major, number 11 tally at the spring major. I didn't even look at his world's numbers, honestly. But the intangibles he brings to turn teams from non-major teams into the second best team in the world. And I get it. It's not only him. But a lot of it is, if you look at before and after for a lot of these teams, Rise has made every team better. And every time he leaves the team, they have gotten worse. And it is hard to discredit that. I get it. We can talk about numbers all day because that's what we have. It's harder to talk about the eye test because it's like, oh, no, he just looks great on the field, like great touches and all of that. But what you can talk about very easily is the intangibles. Does he make a team better when he's there? Absolutely. Does he make a team worse when he leaves, no matter his replacement? And that is 100% absolutely as well. So Rise, he gets number 2, maybe more so for the intangibles, but he was on the number 2 team in the world. This is my one exception of 1 player per team, but that's because Rise was on 2 different teams this year. So I wanted to shout him out as well. And Monkey Moon also made this list at number 4. I think number 2, 3, and 4, you probably could have put in any order that you wanted. I think there's arguments for Monkey Moon because of his regional dominance. Vatira, obviously, on K-Corp, being just like that leader, that guy on K-Corp, and being the 3rd best team in the world. And then there's obviously arguments, which is what I'm trying to make here, of Rise, the intangibles, making teams better when he joins them. So that is why I went with Rise here. well done to him. But you all know it's coming. You all know it is. Number one, with a bullet. Not much needs to be said here. Zen is your top player of 2023. The man, or should I say the boy, couldn't even play in the winter major. It didn't even matter. He comes in the spring, rewrites the history books. A perfect spring regionally, never been done before in one of the bigger regions, NA or Europe. But to top it off, the split slam, he gets the spring major championship. I think he was spring MVP. He probably was. I don't even remember, honestly, off the top of my head. I think everyone was going crazy because they're the best North American team. I said there was no more North American players, but we got one more on here. Zen coming out. Spring champion. World Championship MVP as well. Comes into the World Championship and just continues to perform. And this was a Vitality team. I'm not saying they were terrible. They were at the Winter Major. They were a solid team. But as soon as Zen joined, they were the best team in the world. And they won everything. So how can it not be Zen? I don't understand. Spring Major, number 3 score per game, number 7 saves, number 2 tally. They were on the number 1 offensive team. They were the number 1 defensive team as well. We talk about defense where you can't really show those numbers necessarily. But Vitality was the number 1 defensive team, not only at the Spring Major, at the World's main event, number 1 defense team. Excuse me. 1.08 goals against per game at the World Championship main event against the best teams in the world. They barely scored more than a goal per game against them. That's absolutely nutty. The number 4 offensive team that time at the World's main event, but it didn't matter. Number 3 shots per game for Zen, putting on a lot of pressure at the World Championship. And number 4 in tally on top of that. So he was still putting up some numbers, even on the number 4 offensive team, was still number 4 in tally versus all players. That's goals and assists per game, if you forgot. But Zen, it's a Zen world, and we're just living in it. And we're just going to see if anyone can take him down. Now, obviously, there's been some hiccups later on. Gamers 8, which doesn't really count here. But, you know, then the Paris LAN Weekly, whatever that thing was called. The Paris LAN's Games Week. Yeah, something like that. They lost that too. But, you know, hey, what are you going to do? It's the offseason. I don't really care too much about that. That's going to knock him off his number 1 spot after winning the World Championship. Next year, Vitality. All the targets are on their back. Everyone's making rosters. Like literally everyone basically is making roster moves outside of Vitality to see if anyone will catch them. But the one thing is they don't have that Vitality has is Zen. So we'll see if they can catch him. We'll see if Zen continues the meteoric rise. I can't say that word. I guess he can't rise anymore. He's just there. He's at the top of the mountain. He's at the peak. Will anyone knock him down? I think it's like if I was a betting man, I would say probably not. I think Zen will, by the end of next year, I think Zen, maybe not with the exact same roster, could very well be the 2024 world champion as well. Maybe some hiccups. Like I expect some hiccups along the way. But I think that might just make them better when it comes down to the World Championship. So it'll be an interesting year. All targets on Zen to be that number 1 player. But Zen has never lost in the RLCS. You know, he's just perfect. I mean, I guess he's lost like a series, but he's never like lost a tournament. So we'll see if that trend continues next year. But that's going to do it here. Our top players are wrapped up. I hope everyone has a fantastic holiday season. A happy new year. We'll do power rankings. We'll probably do who improved rosters, who didn't improve rosters. We'll do all those videos probably later in January as we get closer to the RLCS start. The tweet said we're starting late January. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't have a contract, so I don't know. But we'll see. Hopefully I'm there. I don't know. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for watching all year round with the RLCS, with the streams, with the YouTube, all of that. I really, really do appreciate it. And yeah, have a happy new year. We'll see you guys next year. Later.